Okay guys, today we are going to work on a lesson on page 12. So I'm on page 12 of our packet of polynomials part 2. And the first thing I want to do is I want to kind of just recap what we've been doing with our lessons, right? Because it all keeps building on itself. So what is the degree about this polynomial here? If we have f to the x equals x cubed minus 6x squared minus 13x plus 42. The degree is 3. It matches your highest exponent. So this is a third degree polynomial. And that means, question B, what does that tell us about the number of solutions? Right? That at most we can have 3 solutions. All right. Now, in the previous lessons, I've given you a starting point. Like, if x plus 1 is a factor, now find the other factors. Or check to see if x minus 2 is a factor. Today, I'm just giving you the polynomial. And what we want to do is we want to find all of the roots. Okay? We want to determine any of the roots or the zeros that would go together with the factors. All right? So, part C is saying graph and determine any rational roots. So what I want you to do is if you grab your calculator, we're going to choose over here, if you hit the home page, we're going to choose B, we're going to graph, okay? You can also hit the sketch pad. Now, if you have a graph from before, like an old one, you can get rid of it by going to menu, and then you're going to pick number 3, graph entry edit, all right, and number 1, function. And what you're going to do you see how mine started at f of 2? If I go up, my work from another problem is in f of 1. So I'm going to backspace. When you backspace and press enter, it goes away. All right, so if you have a graph, that's how you get rid of the graph. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. Menu, number 3, graph entry edit, number 1 function, and I'm going to type in this function, okay? So I'm going to type in x, remember you use this caret key to the third, go to the right to get out of the exponent, minus 6x squared minus 13x plus 42. Okay, double check that you typed it in properly. And when you say, yep, I'm good, here we go. Now, this graph, if we actually zoom out a bit, if I go to menu 4 for zoom, okay, and I want to do number 4 for zoom out. If I zoom out, here is my center. Now I can see my graph a little better, okay? It's really stretched out. But let's keep in mind, to save some time, let's talk about what are the zeros. The zeros are where the graph crosses the x-axis. So if I actually undo that, you can hit Control Z, just like on a computer. If you hit Control and then the Z, you can undo what you just did. Okay, and then if I hit escape, I'll get my cursor back. Let's look at where it looks like it's crossing. It looks like, if this is my origin, it looks right now as if it's crossing at -3. It looks as if it's crossing at +2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like it's crossing at 7. So right now, it looks like it's crossing at -3, +2, and +7. All right, that's what it looks like. Those would be my roots. Now, in order for it to be roots, right, then that means that they're going to be, what's going to happen if we do our synthetic division? What happens when I do my synthetic division with one of these numbers? So, if I take my original equation, 1x cubed minus 6x squared minus 13x plus 42. Okay, and I'm going to test these out. So I'm going to test out -3. Okay, so if I test out -3, let's see what happens. I bring down the 1, I multiply, I get -3, right? Then I have this, when I add these together, I get -9. -3 times -9 is +27. And if I add these guys, -13 plus 27 gives me 14. -3 times 14 is -42. And when I add these, I get 0. What did we just spend all that time on? A remainder of 0 means that it was a factor, right? Okay, which means that if we had this problem, we could say x plus 3 is a factor. F-A-C-T-O-R. I can't spell today, sorry, factor. And if we go through what we had just done, that means that we would have x plus 3, and then right here we'd have x squared minus 9x plus 14. And if we wanted to find all the other factors, we could break this up, right? And we'd have x and x. To multiply to get 14 is 7 and 2. Hopefully you're checking this with me, right? It's going to be -7 and -2. This would have been if the direction said factor. This is what we had just done. All right, but we're finding the roots. Well, remember how it looked like it was at +2 and +7? Well, think about how that comes together. X plus 3 equals 0 is x equals -3. X minus 7 equals 0 is x equals 7. X minus 2 equals 0 means x equals 2 is an answer. 1, 2, 3, those are my roots. I know I have them all because my 3rd degree got me there. All right, now, if we take a look, we are like, what about the 0? What we could have done, guys, is we could have kept going. You see how this is 1x squared minus 9x plus 14? We could have, from here, kept going. We could have brought that line 1, -9, 14. All right, and we could say, hey, let's test out 2. If we test out 2, bring down the 1. 2 times 1 is 2. -9 plus 2 is -7. 2 times -7 is -14. Remainder 0. That means 2 worked, and x minus 2 was a factor. And then this is left with, remember how this was 1x squared minus 9x plus 14? And we always count down an exponent. So down from x squared is just x. And we would get this x minus 7. All right? So if you didn't see that it was factorable, but you graphed it like I just showed you, then you could get that piece there. Okay, and you could have tried it this way. If it's factorable, I think factoring is the easiest way. But what's nice is now every problem pretty much you should start by graphing it, because you can pull the whole numbers, the pretty ones, right out of the calculator. Right? Your rational roots are going to be your nice pretty numbers. Now we're going to get into imaginaries and all kinds of other stuff in the next couple of days, right? And of course we're going to do a ton of practice. So what you want to talk about, and I put some helpful hints here, is first, you're better off using synthetic substitution, which is what we just did here. This is synthetic substitutions. Whatever notes you need to make, that's what this is. Instead of direct substitution, because it gets you closer to your final answer. One suggestion is you could set up your synthetic substitution in pen, and then do your work in pencil, and you can erase. Or you can actually just use pencil, so you might want to just ignore that. That's based on something else, which we decided to streamline a bit. So now here's the key. Once you get down to a quadratic, save time by factoring instead of synthetic substitution. That's what I told you, okay? If it doesn't factor, you won't have any more rational roots. That's when you're going to need to use the quadratic formula. So once you get down to a quadratic, and it doesn't factor, that's when you're going to need to use the quadratic formula. All right, and that's going to be helpful, and of course I'm going to model that as we cruise through these. Of course, of course, of course. So what I want to do is, if you go to the next page, okay, I actually want to do number 2 before we do number 1. Okay, so number 2, what I'd like you guys to do is graph this on your own. All right, I'm going to graph it here, but pause the video and try graphing. Okay, so first I'm going to go menu, number 3, graph entry edit, function. I'm going to go up to number 1, and I'm going to backspace, and I'm going to get rid of the other graph and put in this graph. So it's x cubed plus 10x squared plus 31x plus 30. Press enter. Boom. Okay, so take a look. Here's my graph of this function. So it looks right now like it's crossing at -2, -3, and -5. So it's looking like -2, -3, and -5 equals x are the solutions or the roots or all those things, okay? So we need to figure out like how we can start factoring, because it's saying factor it completely. It's not just saying find the answers, but these answers get us started to figure out all the roots, okay? Remember, x cubed, if the degree is 3, that means we should have 3 answers at the end, okay? So pick any one of these that you want. All right, I'm gonna pick -2 because it's first. So then I'm gonna have 1, 10, 31, 30. I'm gonna bring down the 1, and I'm gonna get -2. I'm gonna bring this, add these together. I'm gonna get 8, multiply, -16, add 15, multiply, -30, add 0. Okay, which means that yes, -2 is correct. So now let's see if these guys are also correct. You could choose to pick one of these numbers and do another round of synthetic division. You would have the 1, 8, and 15 at the top row. Or, since this was x cubed, that will be, make this x squared plus 8x plus 15. Because again, a lot of times it's a lot faster to factor. Now, if x equals -2 wasn't the amount we divided by, then its factor, remember, is x plus 2, the opposite of how we got there. So now, can we factor? How can we factor this guy? This is x plus 2. We know that that's an answer. So how do we factor here? We're going to have x and x. To multiply to get to 15 is 3 and 5. And if you check your foiling, 5x plus 3x is the 8x in the middle. So here is my factor answer. And then, yes, we were right. Here are my zeros or my solutions or my roots. It can be called any of those. Okay, and there is that answer. So what I'd like you to do is come back and let's do this guy. Now, taking a look, what do we know about our exponent? Our highest exponent is 4, which means we should have 4 solutions, okay? So if we have 4 solutions, I'm gonna come back to my graph, menu, graph entry, edit, function, right? Go up, backspace. I'm gonna have 2x to the 4. Go to the right to get out of the exponent, plus 11x to the 3, come down, plus 26x squared, plus 29x plus 12. Boom. All right, now this graph looks like it's bouncing right here. So we need to do some zooming in to see where the answer really is. So we're gonna zoom in. All right, this is saying first corner, second corner. So we're gonna click here and I'm gonna drag this way. See how it made like a little faint box? You'll see it on your computer, your calculator. Then that's how we can figure out how it's, you know, connecting, like to make your zoom. And then, oh, it gave us ugly. The other thing we can do is if we go menu and we go to number 6, analyze graph, okay, you could pick number 1, 0, and it's saying lower bound here. That means you go to the left. I'm trying to figure out what this number is here. And then if I go to the right, the upper bound, do you see how here it gave me -1, 0? It actually confirmed it for me. -1, 0 is one of the zeros. So I know already that x equals -1 is one of them that works. So I'm gonna start there. You're gonna wanna write small. We got a lot of work to fit in this space. So I'm gonna put -1, and I have 2, 11, 26, 29, 12. So bring down the 2. I get -2. Add 9, multiply, -9. Add 17, multiply, -17. Add 12, multiply, -12. 0 is the remainder. So that confirms that x equals -1 is one of the answers. Okay, this is going to be 2x cubed plus 9x squared plus 17x plus 12. All right, so do you see, remember back here on our graph, there was another place it crossed. So I'm going to do that thing that I just showed you again. Menu. I'm going to do number 6, analyze graph, and then number 1, 0. I'm going to go to the left of where it crosses and to the right. So see how that shaded area covers it? There, it just gave me negative 1.5. That's another answer that worked. So I'm going to get x equals negative 1.5. Okay, so now I'm going to do synthetic division again because I am not down to a quadratic yet. So I have to keep doing synthetic. And I'm going to use this line here, 2, 9, 17, 12. Okay, carry down the 2. Negative 1.5 times 2, you can use your calculator to multiply, should give you negative 3. When you add these together, you get 6. Negative 1.5 times 6 is negative 9. Sorry. 17 minus 9 is 8. Negative 1.5 times 8 is negative 12. Remainder 0. So now I know that I confirmed that negative 1.5 is also a 0. So now I'm going to have my factors, right? So like the first one was x plus 1. The second one, remember because it's the opposite sign, the second factor is x plus 1.5. We'll cross that bridge in a little bit. The third one is this guy. If this was x to the 4, this is x cubed, which makes this be x squared. So this is 2x squared plus 6x plus 8. All right? And we have to figure out, can we factor this? All right? When you're trying to factor it like that, it actually comes out that it's not a factorable problem. If it's not factorable, then this is where we would stop with our factor answer. And I'll talk to you guys. Please make a note, be like, ask Mrs. Michael, I want to talk to you about this in person, okay? So this is as far as we can go factoring. But we didn't find all of our zeros because remember, we had x to the 4, which means there's 4 answers. And so far, we've only found 2. So this is where I need you guys to do the quadratic formula, which we've written down a million times. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. All right, so I'm just going to create a little space here for my paper to keep my work together, okay? I'm going to do x equals, you're just using this, 2, 6, 8. A is 2, B is 6, C is 8. So I'm going to have negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c divided by 2a. Okay, so this is negative 6 plus or minus square root 36 minus 8 times 8 is 64 over 4. 36 minus 64 is negative 28. So now I have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 28 over 4. I ran out of space, I'm so sorry. Which equals, if you have an I inside the square root, you have imaginary numbers, right? That's okay. Imaginary numbers happen. So what you're going to have is you're going to have negative 6 plus or minus 28 is 4 times 7. So the square root of negative 28 is negative 4 times 7. The square root of negative 4 is 2i root 7. That's what we've got. So it's going to be 6 plus or minus 2i root 7 over 4. And those are our other two answers. The plus, negative 6 plus 2i root 7 over 4. And the third is negative 6 minus 2i root 7 over 4. The plus or minus is two of the answers. So we're going to get x equals negative 6 plus or minus 2i root 7 over 4. These are the zeros. This is your factored answer. These are the zeros. So what I would like you guys to do, you need to do this. This is where we're starting, and I'm checking your work. Okay, I'm checking to make sure every single person did this. You need to do just number 3 on your own. That's it, just number 3. Graph it. find the places where it crosses the x-axis, then do your synthetic, factor if you can. Like here we could factor and it was like easy peasy. If it doesn't factor, that's okay. This one didn't factor, the quadratic didn't factor anymore, so that was our factoring answer. And we had to do the quadratic formula to get the rest of the zeros. Okay, so you are doing just number 3 on your own. That's it, one problem. Good job today. Make sure you do this because I'm checking it next class.